Alright, Dan.
Dan.
Do it with Dan's.
Do it with Dan.
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 Do it with Dan. Do it with Dan.
Do it with Dan. Do it with Dan.
Do it with Dan.
Do it with Dan.
Dan. Let's just do it with Dan. You're doing it with me.
That's pretty. God damn it tricks me every time. Every time I get on the bike, it feels nice and warm outside, and then as soon as you get going, it's like the wind chill is super cold. Son of a bitch! Oh, we got prison workers. What's going on? What's going on, guys? Man, my bike totally got all up in its own. They're in second gear. That was crazy. Man, I get asked all the time what it felt like to be in an accident, what it felt like to be in a crash. I didn't really give it much thought, but it's happened so much that I figure I'd talk about it a little bit, I guess. You know, when I was in my motorcycle accident, I don't know what the fuck was going on, you know? You always kind of train for it mentally, like, oh, I'll do this, I'll put my hands down, I'll roll up in a ball. Dude, none of that shit was happening. Because you can't predict being in a crash, right? It just happens. Obviously, if you could predict being in a crash, you wouldn't fucking ride your bike. First of all, it's very disorienting. I had no idea what was going on. I don't really remember that much from the accident, even though that I was awake the whole time. I was physically conscious throughout the whole accident. I can recall, really, is tumbling. Does that make sense? Like, I remember tumbling. Well, actually, let me start over. I left my bike at approximately 60 miles an hour, give or take. And I remember the last thing I saw on my bike was the words Yamaha written on the tailpiece. I can remember seeing it in slow motion. I remember looking at it. My hands are like way back here and the tailpiece is like right up here. And I'm looking at it, and I can remember looking at it and seeing the word Yamaha on the tailpiece, and I thought to myself, I really should not be seeing this right now. Why am I seeing the words Yamaha written on the tailpiece? Oh my god, ow. It was just pretty much an unknown. Like, it's really hard to tell you what it felt like because honestly, it didn't hurt. There was pressure, but there wasn't necessarily pain. And that's because the adrenaline, I guess, was going so hard that I couldn't really feel any pain yet. I can remember my hands bouncing off the ground and me rolling. I remember that very specifically. And I remember seeing a bumper of a vehicle about this close to my face, you know, give or take a couple inches. That's all I can remember seeing, because everything else was just like spinning and shit, and there's no way to like pinpoint things when you're doing that. You can't, it's so crazy that your body's fight or flight system takes over. You can't tell yourself in those scenarios unless you've literally done them a million times what to do. So it's just like your body's just doing all these things that it's gonna do because of what's called your fight or flight, or I think that's what it's called. But it's pretty much like what your body does in those situations, what it does to protect itself. You kind of just do things, you know, you're not meaning to, plus your body's flopping around like a rag doll. You only have so much that you can do. It's really quite impossible to control what your body's doing in that scenario. So like I said, I didn't feel any pain really. I just felt pressure and forces on my body. I remember my legs scorping over. Does that make sense? Like your legs like scorping over while I was sliding. I can remember that because I remember my back stretching in a really weird way. As I came up, as I was losing momentum, I just stood up. Like I stood up in mid-slide or mid-roll or whatever. I just decided that like, hey, I should stand up. So I stood up. I was on my feet again. You know, like I was like, oh, stood up. And both my feet were numb. Both my hands were numb. And a couple of areas on my body were numb. I had no feeling in them, really, whatsoever. I could tell that there's something wasn't right about them, but there wasn't any feeling in them. So I just walked off the side of the road. Like, there was the road right there next to me, so I just I walked off the side of the road to get away from traffic because there was cars and shit. And both my feet were numb and I wasn't wearing shoes. I stood up, had no shoes, couldn't feel my feet, couldn't feel my hands. I walked off the side of the road. And I stood there and I turned around and I look at my hands and there is just like skin hanging off both of my hands. Like just like a big chunk of skin just folded down looking like, I'm like, what the fuck? That's gonna hurt tomorrow, right? Because I don't feel it right now. And then some guy pulls up next to me and he goes, hey man, are you okay? Like I didn't just bounce my ass across the concrete at 60 miles an hour. So I said, yeah man, I'm actually think I'm all right. I don't feel any. And then before I could even finish my sentence, my fucking feet gave out from under me and I fell over and I got really tired. I got extremely tired. I wanted to go to sleep right then and there. They thought I had a concussion because I was so tired. But I remember sitting on the side of the road, looking at my hands, and like they just slowly start to tingle more and more. And they would just tingle and tingle, and all of a sudden it was just like burning. Fucking fire, man. It hurt so bad. And my foot just started to my feet just started to ache slowly. Like they get worse and worse and worse. And that's when I knew they were broken. The EMT showed up and he asked me, he goes, what hurts worse, your hands or your feet? And I said, I really don't know because, you know, I'm just kind of getting used to this pain. He's like, okay. And I kept telling him, man, I really want to go to sleep. I really want to go to sleep, man. I'm so tired right now. I'm so thirsty. I think I'm just going to go to sleep. Even though I was still completely conscious, I just remember being tired. I remember being so fucking tired. I'm like, man, just let me go to sleep. I can't stay awake anymore. I'm gonna pass out if I don't go to sleep. He's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Terrible. Go into a coma. You'll never get back. I'm like, just let me go to sleep, bro. I'm so tired. I just want to take a nap. Like I'm on the side of the road in my underwear because they've cut my pants off. And I'm in the side of the road, like fucking shredded pants. Like, just let me take a nap, man. Come on, let me get some sleep. Don't make me stay awake. He's like, no, can't let you go to sleep, buddy. He didn't let me go to sleep, fucker wouldn't let me take a nap. I didn't have a concussion though. I don't know why I was so tired. Maybe my body was like recover mode, recover. And my eyes dilated. That was terrifying. I couldn't, when my eyes started to dilate, I got really nauseous. Like I was gonna pass out. I felt like I was gonna pass out. My eyes got really dilated. And everything got really bright. It was the brightest anything had ever been in my entire life. Oh, the birds won't go. Damn it. My eyes dilated. Everything got really bright. I was tired and I wanted to take a nap. I got really woozy. Like I had been drinking all night, you know? Crazy mix of feelings. And then when I got in the back of the ambulance, they finally put me in the back of the ambulance and they said, all right, man, do you know what hurts worse? Your hands or your feet? And I said, like, I really don't know, man. Everything kind of just sucks right now. He's like, okay. And he starts washing my hands. He starts putting water on my hands to wash it. And I instantly knew what felt worse. My hands by far. I get asked a lot what it felt like to be in an accident, and I figured I'd just share that with you guys. It's been long enough to where I guess it's almost irrelevant. Get the middle of the parking spot. Mine. Nobody else's mine. I suppose you guys haven't seen it with the red lungs yet. And the red rims. Cool.